Okay, how does this template work? First, you'll see the main edit comp, which has 7 different scenes, and you can render this comp or use the master render composition to render your movie. Now, each scene has a number of pages, so do a core resolution. This is page 1. Now, all of these pages can be modified by you any way you like. There are 2 ways to do this. First, here at the top, you'll see the main folder. First, you'll see the title placeholder, which is the text that you see in front of the sketchbook. And you'll see a list of pages. So if I open page 1, I can see a sketch. I can see, if I scroll a little bit further, I can see a sketch. I can see a text. I can see a clip-on paper. I can see the original photo. And all these things can be edited and moved around on this page. Now you can edit all of these things by going to the Pages folder, go to the corresponding page. There you'll see the placeholders. You see the photo placeholder, text, the clip-on paper. And if you go to the sketch, you see that you have items like the background paper, extras like the clip-on paper, an original photo. Now I realized that it is a bit tedious to click through all these folders, so I thought of an easy way to edit this template. So let's start over again and open the main edit. You'll see that the scenes are purple. If you see a purple composition, it means that you can click on it and edit it. So if I open scene 1 and I scroll to the bottom, I see the list of pages that are in this scene. So they are purple, so I can click on them. So if I open page 1, now I am back in page 1 again. And in these page compositions, you will also see these purple compositions. Now they have no function, they are turned off, but act like a kind of a hyperlink. So if you want to open the placeholder, you can click on the photo placeholder and you can insert your photo. You can also tweak the sketch by clicking on sketch. You can add your text for the text placeholder here. You can open the background and change the background of the page. And you can also, and the same applies for the reveal matte. Now the reveal matte are the borders around the sketch, which I will explain a little bit further in the next chapter of this tutorial. Okay, let's do an example. I have a photo here in the user input. This is a folder which you can use to keep things organized and import your own photos. So I go to page 1, I open the photo placeholder, and here you'll see a temporary image. You can turn this off. And I can drag my photo in here. You have to place it beneath the reveal matte layer, which is, if I turn this off, you'll see it's just an orange area, and that indicates which part of the photo is shown in the sketch. So I'll scale it down a little bit, maybe like so. So now if I go back to page 1, I can see that my sketch is created and the photo is placed in the photo placeholder. I can do the same for the text placeholder. New text. Go back to page 1 and I'll see that the new text is there. I can also open the background. In the background we have a number of images which I can turn on and off to get a different background. So for example, paper version 2, which is more, turn this off, more an older piece of paper. If we go back to page 1, we'll see we have a different background texture now. I can also move around the clip-on paper or place the photo somewhere else. I can also hide them if I want, or turn them back on. We can also open the clip-on paper, for example. We see 2 purple compositions again, which you can open, so the paper texture. If I open that, I can select a different texture, for example, but I can also, for example, tint the background. So if I go back to page 1, I now have a purple paper. If I open the clip on paper again, I can also go to the text placeholder, and here I can enter a different text if I want. Oh, and in the clip on paper we can also turn off the paper clip. If I turn it off with the visibility, I can still see a shadow, so we have a different method for that. If we click on it, we have an effects control on and off. We can just click it off, and we can, for example, click on the sticky paper, turn it off, on, and now it's visible. So if we go back to page 1, I'll move this a little bit lower because it's now with a sticky paper on the background. Okay, let's now discuss the sketch. So we can do a lot of tweaking by opening the sketch, like so. So here we see our sketch and we see our text. You will see a number of control layers here with expressions controls, where you can tweak stuff like the highlights or the shade or the colors. I will not go through all these controls now because it will take too long, but I have placed an image here in the help folder. If you open it up, you can zoom in, you can see that every expression control is explained a little bit further with some text here on the right. So you can scroll through it to see what every expression control does. Let's go back to the sketch. I will also do some advanced sketch tweaking in the next tutorial, so you can watch that to better understand the sketch effect. But just 2 quick examples for now on how you can tweak this sketch. If I select the color layer and I press U to bring up the keyframes, you will see the only 2 keyframes in this composition, and that is the color. And that is done because there's a small animation here. So if I go to the first keyframe, you can see it's black and white, and if I play it, you can see it turns on the color. So if I go to the effects control, I can see here the color strength, which is animated, but I can also maybe turn on the sepia effect to get a more sepia filter applied to it, or I can maybe increase the color strength to get a darker color, or decrease it. And you can change the vibrance, and you have a couple of filters that you can apply to the sketch. Also, what I noticed with this sketch, if I go to full resolution, so what I noticed with this sketch is it's a very bright image, so we have a lot of highlights here. So I can go to the highlights layer. We have 2 types of highlights, and we can play around with the strength just to decrease the highlights. So if now you see a lot less highlights, maybe a little bit more, less, maybe decrease the opacity a little bit. Now we have a subtle highlight in the hand and in the face. Okay, I like this sketch. Now we can also move around the sketch by selecting the placement layer. And now we can move the sketch around, or we can even increase the size. And let's go back to page 1. Okay, that looks fine to me. Now let's go back to the scene. And what I can do is now we see the page in the scene, and we can scroll further. Here we have page 2, we can select it, and we can basically repeat all the steps again. Okay, and that's it. Last, we can go back to scene 1. We can do also some changes in the scene. What we have in this composition is a camera's controls layer. You also have a lot of expressions here where you can control the camera movement by rotating it or moving in and out, zooming. We can turn on and off the depth of field, and we can control the wiggle of the camera, so it slightly wiggles and moves around. We also have some layers that create an extra blur effect. We have the camera, we have a depth of field, null object. This controls the exact position of the depth of field focus area, so I can move around. You can move this around in 3D space to exactly control the depth of field. You have a couple of null objects that control the entire scene or only the sketchbook. We have our pages that we discussed, and last we have our floor. So we could open up the floor and you could insert your own floor texture here and change the whole look of the scene. Let's go back to scene 1. Just a quick note, you'll see here page D1, it's the special page. If I open it up, you'll see that this page has 2 sketches on it. That also means that it has 2 placeholders, 2 sketches, etc. Okay, that's all you need to know. You can render any of these 2 comps. You have a music composition here as well. If you go to the user input folder, you have the music composition. If you insert Audio Jungle file that I used in the preview, which you can find in the README file, you can just buy it, insert it here, and you will have a synchronized music. And that's all you need. So next up I will do some advanced sketch tweaking in the next tutorial.